So there's like a lot of electrolytes, but they won't necessarily have a lot of carbs.
Right.
And then I'll find high carb drinks, but they don't have the electrolytes. So it's like, okay, either I'm going to be cramping, but well fueled, or have no cramps, but not fueled enough. All right, welcome back to Bespoke Endurance. Today is episode 15 of Recreational Rider to Racer podcast series, where Josh and I are transforming into racers, leveling up on the bike and in life in the midst of busy lives with work and young families. If that is something that interests you, please hit that subscribe button and follow us along on our journey. You will not be disappointed.
Yes.
All right, so here's what I want to do tonight, because there's a couple topics that I want to cover with you. The first is, I feel like as the weather's been really changing for the better, finally, it's also changing our training a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
So I want to kind of get into how our training is shifting, especially now as we're starting to get outside more. So what is training? We don't have to get too nitty gritty with it, like in the weeds, but just kind of an overview of here's what the first kind of block looked like versus what it looks like now.
Yeah. I think the training has shifted a little bit from the periodization factor, where our coach has us has me doing longer intervals. So most weeks I start to see these interval minutes creep up. So it started out where I might be doing 4-minute intervals. Next week I might be doing 4.5, maybe 5. And then now it's creeped up to the 8 to 10-minute interval mark. And so going into Chirahalla, which is a really long endurance, a lot of climbing.
1 month away.
1 month away. He still has me doing a lot of high intensity workout, which was interesting. A lot of zone 2 on the weekend. So the longer rides, the longer days, which is great. And they need to be cafe rides, to be honest, but I'm still intrigued with the fact that I'm doing, honestly, probably minimum 3 days still of intensity outside of that. Yep.
Oh,
so
that sucks.
Yeah. And which I've understood that you're not doing as much intensity.
No, it's not that I'm doing as much. I'm just doing better intensity.
Okay.
So
wow.
During the winter, I would say the first little bit, we were getting like 8 to 9 hours a week.
Yes.
And from that, because it was pretty much all inside.
Correct.
I was getting 3 days of intervals a week to try to get that TSS up.
Yep.
So he's transitioned me in this new block where I'm only doing like 2 intervals a week and then a lot of miles on the weekend. So
what type of intervals are you doing?
My intervals have looked like either a VO2 max or the super thresholds.
Yep.
So like
those are brutal.
Yeah. Last night I did like 8 minutes at like 280 to 290 watts and then like a 4-minute recovery and then back up again.
So 8-minute intervals?
8-minute intervals.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I've done a lot of is the sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate them. There's nothing sweet about sweet spot training. It is like VO2 and Supra is like, I don't know, you get recovery. So like mentally it's like, okay, this is going to be 6 minutes of torture, but then I get a 3-minute recovery. This is just like, I don't know, 30 seconds recovery. And then you're just back to just at threshold.
There's
just
nothing
below.
sweet about it.
This sucks. So, but then my weekends are like Saturday, 3 to 4 hour rides.
Mm-hmm.
And then like Sunday, 2 to 3 hour rides.
Yeah.
Try to get those in like before we get up and do church.
Yeah.
So I try to get home by 8 on Sunday and by 9 on Saturday.
Yeah.
So I'm waking up at like 4:40 and I still hate that.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think zone 2 rides are just an excuse to justify our pastry and coffee addiction. And I think that's arguably something that we even had that zone 2 ride this past weekend where we kind of cut it a little short than maybe our coach had wanted, but we did do a cafe stop, which made the ride pretty awesome. It was great.
It was a lot colder than we thought it was going to be.
It was gonna
Like I was really underdressed.
Yeah, that's
but
true. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like
Have you felt more motivated though, being less on the trainer,
Yes.
especially on the weekends?
yes,
Because the
like,
weather's better?
I've even been getting up some days during the week and getting outside on the road
Yeah.
before work.
I saw it.
Like those
That's
like
great.
hour, 90-minute recovery rides after intervals. I'm like, I'll just go do this outside in the morning. Honestly, I think what's helped me with this next block is it's been mentally better. There's something about 3 days of intervals where you're like mentally that just kills you. And so having a little bit more of a routine
I'm
of like,
still
okay,
in that though.
yeah, so you need to
Yeah, it must be nice to
you
not
need to figure this out because like even this week it was like I went intervals Tuesday and then next set was Thursday. And so then it's like, and then rest day Friday or kind of like a half hour ride or something simple. And then just long miles on the weekend. So that's been like way more mentally doable
Yeah.
than oh my gosh, those February months were the worst.
Yeah. They're forgettable.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just don't.
And hence
you
we've
don't-
forgotten them.
Yeah, and you don't want to remember them because it's mostly on the trainer and it's too cold to ride outside and it's brutal. Yeah.
Yes.
But I do think that, I think that makes sense though, because your A race is coming up with Cherahalla.
Yeah.
And that is way different than my A race in terms of what my ultimate peak goal, end of June versus yours is coming up in a month. And the type of race are two very different.
Well, something I wanted to get into too, to prepare for Cherahalla, and I wanted to throw this your way because I think you've also said to me how sucky Sweet Spot is.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I've done them enough now. I don't hate them as much as you do, but some days though they're pretty brutal,
especially in erg mode. Like Sweet Spot in erg mode also sucks.
Yeah.
So here's what I've been trying because I still am on this. I'm going back to like episode 3. I'm still on this erg mode. What do I call it? Not adventure, but like I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like
you're pioneering it for other people.
Yes, I'm on a quest to really figure out erg mode. So here's what I've messed around with.
What is
now.
erg mode?
Okay, I'm not getting into what is erg mode, but here's what I've done. I've done training in erg mode, so it just automatically sets the wattage, and no matter what you pedal, it puts you at the wattage.
Yep.
I've also turned that off and just done resistance like on the trainer. So you can put it up all the way to kind of simulate like climbing, and then it just stays at that resistance. What I've been doing recently though, and this is what I think you need to try,
Here we go.
is neither of those, and I just go to the Alp in Zwift, and I do all my intervals up the Alp.
Okay.
And here's
But your erg mode's not on.
erg mode is not on.
Okay.
So it's like, it's the resistance of the Alp. I have to adjust my gears and my cadence to that resistance because there's a couple parts where it's like 10% and then it goes down to like 3 or in a corner and then back up. And here's why I've been doing that. Because
You're saying you would do your sweet spot on these?
I'm trying that this week. I'm
Okay.
trying Sweet Spot. I just did the Supras. So 8 minutes at like 280 to 290. I've done that a couple times now.
You did those up the Alp?
I did those up the Alp.
When you look back at your power, how did it average in those intervals?
Within my numbers.
Okay.
I think a couple might have been 1 or 2 watts lower.
Well, arguably within 5 to 7 is really consistent.
There's some more fluctuation than erg mode,
Right.
but I feel like it does a better job of preparing for an event like Cherahalla where there's 10,000 feet of climbing because you're going to be climbing on sustained climbs. There's different pitches, there's corners, it's not just you lock into 95 cadence and have the same resistance. So that's something I wanted to throw your way. I think for Cherahalla and these climbing events, trying like getting out of erg mode and just going, because another thing where I struggle,
Turn that erg mode off.
it's really hard to hold really high power in the really big gears.
It is.
I find if I can get to a I don't want to say easier because you're still putting out 290 watts, but a simpler gear feels more manageable than grinding in the big
Yes.
chain ring. And
I
so
agree.
I go to the Alp and then it's like, okay, I'm in my climbing gears and there's times where I'm spinning and sitting. There's times where I stand up, and that is more realistic to what you're going to
Of an actual
experience
climbing.
of an actual climbing. Like you're
Yeah.
not going to just stay seated holding 290 watts on a climb in a race.
Yeah,
Like
correct. It's
there's
never
no
going to
way.
be this perfect, like, oh, it's like you're only floating a couple of watts below or above it. And it's like,
So
yeah.
this is my challenge to you
Okay.
for sweet spot
Yeah.
and your next
Turn
like,
erg mode off, go up the Alp.
just go to the Alp and come back and let me know. I'm curious.
Well, I can. We've got a few weeks before Cherahala. I'd be curious to see to feel the difference because I know what doing herb mode is. I do it all the time. And
It
so
sucks.
I know it's brutal. It is awful. It's not great. The nice thing is it does keep you consistent. I
Yes.
get that.
There is
The problem is though that I'm not climbing well right now, and I need to figure out like what is going wrong for me in this. So we're going to get into KORRs in a minute, but
Yeah.
I do think that's an interesting test because if we're in our race again, and if you pass me on another climb and you say you should have just turned your erg mode off, I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be upset because I'm going to be thinking about that on the trainer.
but like I think
And you're going to be
that-
like, I just didn't have erg mode on. So it's real life, Josh. See ya.
but I think that there is a more realistic field.
100%.
So training yourself, if you're in a race like Cherahala, and let's say the final climb is a 12-mile climb, and when you get to the last 2-3 miles, you're mentally like, my power's dropping.
Yes.
I have to figure this out now.
Yep.
And I think erg mode doesn't help you figure that out.
Yeah.
Like having to look at for me, what I do is I still run my head unit so I can see my average power for each lap.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, okay, I'm coming in too hot. I'm coming in too low. And then I'm like, okay,
Are you lapping? So take Cherahala, for example, or a really long climb. Typically on a shorter climb, you would lap and just be like, that's the climb.
Yeah.
It's 5 minutes or whatever. That's
Yeah, yeah.
fine. But Cherahala is very different. It's what, maybe an hour-ish?
I'm
Close to an hour?
gonna lap the climbs. Yeah.
So you're going to lap each climb.
I mean, definitely the first two, because those are only 15 and 20 minute climbs.
Right.
But
Would you lap the hour and break it up to know that, like, let's say the last 2 miles, you've hit lap
Yeah, I
on the
see what
8
you're saying.
miles. So the last 2 miles, you're like, oh, my average power is like down to 230. I need to get it back up to like 250 or 260 to keep this of what I would desire it to be for this whole climb.
yeah, I'll have to talk to our coach, because I think last year I lapped the whole hour, but I've also had
Right.
people for long sustained climbs like that say, break it up into thirds. Come in for the first 25, 15, 20 minutes, see how you feel.
Yeah.
And then the next 20, see if you can ramp up the power a little bit or
Okay.
keep it right there. And then the last 20 minutes, try to just send it. So I might do that too. I don't know. I
Okay.
got to talk to our coach on that. But
Okay.
I mean, I definitely am lapping the climbs to see
What your
I'm at.
average
Yeah.
power.
Yeah. And I try it this week.
Yeah, but are you looking at your 10-second power on those climbs mostly? Or are you still looking at just average? Because my 10-second is like,
So
it goes up
I
and
do
down.
3 second. I will do, the nice thing about Zwift is I'll have on my head unit in front of me, because it loads in the training peak workout still.
Yeah.
I'll have that, and I'll have my average power or my normalized. And then I'll look at Zwift for my current 3 second to see like, oh, I'm at like 320.
Got it.
That's kind of too high right now. Let's bring it down to like 3 to 310. Okay, my average is still slowly climbing, trying to kind of balance those, if that makes sense.
Yep.
For Cherahala, when you're doing an hour climb, you're going to be jumping around a lot of screens. So you're going to be looking at, what am I currently doing? What's my average?
Checking Instagram,
But
TikTok,
no, you're gonna be the one you're gonna be looking at is how much longer until I'm at the top of this freaking climb.
Yeah.
Because like it's a segment, so it'll show you like how far you are and what
Yeah.
gradient you're currently on.
Yep. I know. Yeah, I will try that. I will.
I'm
I like that. I
curious.
like that challenge because I've got to switch some things up because yeah, it part of it is just it's not that I can't hold power.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, climbing, it's been a challenge to stay in the front pack. And that's where I think I'm getting frustrated at my lack of ability to be able to do that. So
Okay. Let's before we go any further, we want to give a huge shout out to Road ID for not only supporting our podcast, but also letting us film right here at their headquarters. If you're a cyclist, runner, or just someone who wants peace of mind while out on the road, Road ID has you covered. Their medical IDs provide crucial info in case of an emergency, and they look great too. Do yourself a favor, check out roadid.com and grab one today. Big thanks to the team at Road ID for their support. We also want to give another big shout out to Kentucky Open Road Racing Series, who is still partnering with us through the entire season. And they are looking to bring you an exclusive deal for our listeners. So if you're looking to race in the Kentucky Open Road Racing Series this season, use the code BESPOKE15 at checkout for 15% off your registration.
Let it go.
That also, your registration also automatically puts you in a drawing to potentially win a Cannondale Super 6 Evo 4.
Mm-hmm.
And for every race that you do, that's another entry in the drawing. And if you can't race and you've got family that volunteers, that puts them in the drawing too. So whether you're a seasoned racer or just getting started, KORRs has something for every level cyclist. Head over to KentuckyORRS.com and use the code BESPOKE15 at checkout. That's BESPOKE15. Okay. Speaking of...
Okay. Where do we go from here?
Speaking of KORRs, we actually...
So you've got issues. Let's start. Let's try and address them one at a time. What's the...
I
like that transition.
We got to finally... We have not raced together since Georgia.
Yeah.
And we got to go race KORRs 2 weeks ago.
And how did you finish?
I had an awesome day.
Yeah.
I was very happy. I in the category 4-5, I was able to get second place. So I got on the podium.
Beautiful. Yeah, it was actually really fun to see that. I was really pumped when at the end of my ride, and then I asked you how'd you finish. You're like second. I was like, let's go.
But what's funny is that's exactly how I felt for you in Georgia when you got second in the crit. Where I got double lapped and should have been pulled off the course. And I was like, this was a waste. But then when I crossed, I was like, how'd you do? Like, I got second. I was like, this made it worth it.
Yeah.
So there's definitely I feel like we can celebrate, be really happy for the other person.
Oh yeah. Like we're competing against each other during the race, but at the same time, it is also really fun and enjoyable to be able to also be excited for how each other do, especially when you do well, where it's like, yeah, that's awesome. I was genuinely excited. And I think that's great because it's we were racing in the rain, which was insane. I think there's a new level of respect I have for other guys and gals who are racing in the rain.
Yes.
That just, even from a pro level, it was one of those things that I had always thought that I was like, man, these guys are just insane. Right. And then when you do it, some of it felt very comfortable after a while because you're like, okay, I'm trusting my tires.
Yep.
I'm trusting my cornering, my bike handling skills. At the same time, there was a dude that went down, and the second pack,
I didn't see that.
Well,
we had a guy almost go down.
Yeah.
The guy that got third almost went down.
Yeah. But I felt much safer than I probably thought I would have looking back looking back.
When we say rain, it wasn't just raining, sprinkling or kind of spitting. It was pouring.
Yeah, it was.
There were moments where I
soaked.
Could not see more than 30 yards, 40 yards up the road.
Yeah.
At some time, not the whole race. It died down some, but there were definitely, especially the second lap.
Yeah, it got bad.
Picked up. Okay. Yeah. So how do you want to talk about this as far as
Well, let me ask you this first. So if you had to break down your race, how do you think you did compared to what your expectations were of this?
I didn't really have any expectations going in. So, my goal was just don't crash.
Yeah.
So I did way better than I thought I would. It was one of those where afterwards I've thought about it 100 times. What could I have done different? But the good news is when I crossed the line, the immediate thought I had was there's not a single thing I could have done different or would have done different. Second, just what I got. And I don't think that I could have done, because I've been playing different scenarios. I'm if this would have happened, then I don't think we'd have gotten in the breakaway like we did.
Yeah.
So
because you told me you were working a lot more, especially lap 2.
Yeah.
Then the guy who ended up finishing, who got first place, he was sitting in a lot more.
So
Yeah.
lap 1, everyone was still together.
Yeah.
We got to a fairly large climb.
Yeah.
Probably like a 2 to 3 minute effort climb.
Yeah.
And I was behind you and kind of in the back of the pack.
Yep.
And then I kind of just felt really good climbing. And I get over the top, and it was me and 3 or 4 other dudes. We had a straight dive bomb descend with no turns. So we got to the bottom, and we looked back and we're like, we've got a gap. And there were 4 of us. So we were like, okay, we're committed. So at that point, the 4 of us were working together to get away versus anyone that attacked before that was just reeled in right away.
Right.
And so this was a very conscious 30 to 40 second efforts, go. And
Must have been nice.
well, and then the second lap. So we did that through the second lap. The problem was, and the guys that finished with me all agreed, I did more work
Yeah.
than any of them.
Sure.
One guy that was kind of organizing it, he got dropped on a climb. So we were without him. The guy that won rode a very smart race, but he didn't like,
He didn't do as much work. Yeah.
he would get to the front
rode
and soft
smart.
pedal and
Yep.
it'd be like,
He's very super, super efficient.
but what was annoying about that is I thought, okay, we can play this game, but the chase group will catch us. We can't just piddle paddle around at 20 miles per hour. We have to send it.
Yeah.
And so me and the guy that got third, we were committed to that.
Yeah.
The guy that got fourth, the guy that we dropped on the climb, he crawled back on the flats because he was super aero.
Yeah.
And then it basically, the last pitch is like a 12%. And that's when it was me and the guy that won. And we were able to, like, he got away and there was nothing I could do to go with him.
Yeah.
But
he just was less fatigued at that point.
yeah.
Yep.
How do you feel like it went for you? Like, looking back now, you've had time to kind of sit back and think strengths, weaknesses, stuff like that.
I think a couple of quick thoughts is, one is, it was really interesting going into this race knowing that it was going to be raining. So mentally, we've never really ridden in much rain, either one of us. And so both, I definitely felt apprehensive for sure.
I tried really hard to get us to just go to the Cat 5 because it was only one lap, 30 miles. Like, dude, we'll be done in like an hour and 20 minutes. Like, I was trying
at that point, I would have stayed with the front pack, you know?
Yeah.
So that was part of it. I did feel like at certain points of the race, I was very apprehensive, especially on the downhills and turning. Just, it felt very different than I've ever ridden before. So that was part of it. So I would say that there was definitely some apprehension throughout the entire race because I just knew in the back of my mind, I really don't want to crash in this rain. So that was part of it. But in terms of my race breakdown, lap 1, I knew, because our coach just always told us, like, be efficient. But he told me specifically, I asked him, you know, for like, what is the race strategy going into KORRs? And he said, stick with the front pack, no matter what. As long as you possibly can, stick with the front pack. So that was my mission. And the first lap, though, because it's a hillier course, I wanted to not get dropped and stay. If I was hanging in the back, or even I felt like even in the middle pack, because we had, I don't know how many guys racing with us.
So there's at least 25.
Somewhere in that range, 20 to 25 or so. In my mind, I was thinking,
Gary, if you could in the comments, please let us know how many were in the Cat 4-5 race.
Yeah. It was only 5 guys. But I knew that but I knew in my mind that I thought, if I need to stay with the front pack, knowing that guys probably are better climbers than me, I need to do whatever it takes to not make sure that I'm way back in the back so that I miss something, because that would, and I felt like that could have even happened in lap 1 if it wasn't for the fact that I found myself pushing myself too hard in lap 1, where I was too much in the front. And there was not enough people. There was guys that were taking off and I would be the ones chasing them down, or I'd be the one in the front. And I just knew that I was taking a lot of turns at the front during lap 1. And I was like, I'm not being really efficient right now. I'm not only doing what our coach tells us not to do, but I'm almost putting myself a little bit too much into the red going into lap 2. And when we hit that climb, going a little bit before lap 2, really right before lap 2 started, that's where I think at that point my mindset was, and this is where my challenge is right now with climbing. I can hold power. I know that.
Yeah.
I do fine with holding power. The issue is like I don't know if it's a watt per kilo thing or if it's just the simple fact of like, maybe I think a couple of things. One is it could just be a lack of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that I'm mentally potentially locking myself into, be like, oh, I'm not a good climber.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, I'm almost like putting myself into this, like, oh, this is harder than it actually is. So I think there's something mentally there. I think the other thing that's happened too is that like I was in that moment. I remember thinking during the climb where I'm like, it's not a crazy climb. It's not this like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest climb ever. It's the idea of like, I thought that, okay, yeah, like when you passed me and a couple of the guys were getting more to the front at the climb, I was thinking, oh, that's fine. I don't need to go super into the red. We can catch them. Like we can work our way back and that's fine. I'll catch up to these guys in like 30 seconds. It'll be fine. The problem is that I didn't push hard enough and ended up getting stuck in the second pack. And the second pack did not want to work to get back up to that front pack. So that's where we lost the race in terms of getting anywhere close to the podium. So mentally, what was really frustrating was I was willing after that climb to work with other guys to get back up to the front because you guys were only a little bit ahead of us. You weren't terribly like you were within eyesight. Yeah, at the beginning. Yeah, you guys were you were still within eyesight. So I would say arguably like maybe 30 seconds at some point, maybe 40 seconds away. And I'm like, we could work together. We had more guys than you did. We could have worked our way back into it if guys were willing to work. The problem was nobody was willing to work, and that's where I got really frustrated and end up second lap. I was still taking a heavy amount of turns at the front, and it was okay. But I mentally, the problem is that climb, if I would have gone, just pushed myself a little bit further, like into the red, I could have stayed with you guys, and I could have been in that front pack. And that's where I think, looking back, I was like, I didn't push hard enough on this climb to be like, okay, if Greg's going to be in the front pack, I need to just hang with him. Whatever he's pushing out, I need to push a little bit harder just to hang on his wheel to get up to where I'm not being left in the pack. Or potentially, because I initially thought like, oh, this is fine. Don't go crazy. We still got a whole nother lap to go. Like, don't overexert yourself on this particular climb. The problem is that's where the race was really decided between the podium and not. And and that's what you don't know when you look back. But you guys could have gotten a little bit ahead, and then all of us could have said, oh, let's work together and let's like catch our way back up. I mean, it just never happened.
There was still, I mean, the attack came at mile 25 into a 60-mile race.
Right.
So that's still 35 miles. So that's still like 50 kilometers of trying to get away and stay. That's a long way off the front.
Yeah.
I think just kind of listening, I do think there's a mental part.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of it goes back to like triathlon. So like triathlon, you know, it was really interesting listening to the doctors last week, but like a lot of the training and the racing for that is like, you just kind of hold.
Yeah. Hold a lot of long power over long intervals.
And where it hurts the most is that last 25% of the race when you're just really trying to hold that. The triathlon is this kind of long burn. I think you're not used to that in a road, more in a crit, you're used to it. But like in the road race, like, okay, this is going to really hurt for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then we're going to settle back into like a tempo. Yeah. And so I think that's part of it too.
Could be. Yeah. I think there's something about just, and part of it is, I know we're going to get into fueling here.
Yeah.
But I do think that I underfueled for the first lap for sure.
Really?
Yep. And because I was so worried about staying with the front pack that I ended up underfueling, and I knew that I underfueled because come lap 2.
Were you cramping?
No, I just knew that I wasn't taking a bottle per hour.
Okay.
And that's where I felt like at the end of the race, I was like, I still almost had a little more than half a bottle left.
It's hard when it rains. Yeah. It wasn't cold.
Yeah.
It just was so rainy. It's like you don't feel as hot.
Yeah. Yeah. But did you feel like you fueled correctly for that race?
Yeah. I mean, what's crazy too is even after the race, the people near me were like, oh man, I wasn't fueled. Like I was cramping on the climb. Yeah. Now I'm like, man, if I'd have known that, I should have just been like, screw this. I'm going for it. Because I never felt like, even with all the pulling I did, like I felt really strong.
Did you finish all 3 bottles?
I think I had a little bit left.
But arguably, you finished most of the bottles.
Yeah,
or
so
all
I
3.
had 3 bottles, did the first one, then I threw that in my shirt,
Right.
and then I did the second one, and so I got through, I think, like 2.5 bottles.
Okay.
So I never felt like, oh man, I'm out of liquid, I'm struggling. Like I felt like my fueling was down between 100 and 120 grams of carbs an hour.
Yeah, that's
So-
good. That really does make a huge difference in racing because a lot of times people underfuel.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's interesting about like what I think would be interesting to get into is the nutrition side of racing.
Yeah.
And particularly for those that maybe are newer to it, maybe those that haven't quite figured out what their nutrition mix is. I'm just curious to kind of take a deep dive into this where we've talked quite a bit about this from 2 different kind of angles in terms of, things that we take, things that we like, but then also, just the,
why do we take them?
why do we take them? Yeah. And like, what's your strategy for why you take what you take? And so let me kick it off to you.
Okay.
What products are you currently taking?
Do you want how I got to them or just what I'm currently doing?
How do you got to them?
Okay. So I'll never forget first time I bonked. I used to only do water.
Yeah.
And like I cramped. People are like, you need like electrolytes and salts and sodiums and all these things.
When
And
was
I'm
the
like,
first time you bonked? Was
like
it
a-
on a group ride?
like a group ride? Like
I had the same thing.
we stopped at a light and my calf cramped and I fell like off my bike. And my leg was like, and they're like, you need Gatorade. So
How many guys were with you on this
Oh,
when
like
you cramped?
10, 20 guys. It was a big group
I
ride.
love it.
So I started with Skratch Labs, their normal
Okay.
hydration. And it seems like it's got a lot of electrolytes, decent amount of sodium, potassium, and magnesium, not a lot of carbs. The struggle that I've kind of run into, what I've found in my experience, and this is why I'm kind of been trying different things. This is why I like the feed, because you can just try stuff pretty easy.
Sure.
Is what I've noticed is there are hydration drinks with a fair amount of electrolytes. So when I say electrolytes, I'm thinking like sodium, potassium, magnesium, and maybe some
Calcium.
sugar.
Yep.
So there's like a lot of electrolytes, but they won't necessarily have a lot of carbs.
Right.
And then I'll find high carb drinks, but they don't have the electrolytes. So it's like, okay, either I'm going to be cramping, but well fueled, or have no cramps, but not fueled enough. And so I've started I tried the Skratch Lab Super Fuel, which is like 100 grams of carbs.
Okay.
But in a $45 package, you only get 8 servings. And I was like, this is not worth it to me. And I mean, I love Skratch, but I'm like, I can't afford.
Yeah. It's a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, like a century ride, you're going through 3 bottles, 4 bottles.
Yeah.
Like that's like half your bag.
Yeah.
So then I started switching to these SIS tablets, and they're significantly cheaper. They're like $9 on the feed. And you get 20 tablets.
How much is that getting you per bottle? How many tablets are you doing per bottle?
1 tablet per bottle.
Okay.
And that gives you.
Are these electrolyte heavy or are these carbs?
These are electrolyte heavy.
Okay.
So they have 345 milligrams of sodium. They don't really have any of the other stuff though.
Oh.
So it's like for sweating, I'm like, this isn't bad. But now what I've started doing is combining those on century rides, super long zone 2 rides, and races with the SIS beta fuel. So this is really carb heavy.
So you're combining the beta fuel with what's the other name?
The SIS I got it right here. The SIS hydro
the
tablets. Yeah.
Okay. So the tablets and the beta fuel, you're combining those two.
Yes. So
So you're getting electrolytes and the carbs together.
Yes. So I'm getting 80 grams of carbs per little pack in the beta fuel. I put that in my bottle. I drop a tablet in, mix that up, and then I'm getting 80 grams of carbs there, and I'm getting a lot of sodium.
Okay.
Which has been working for me. And then,
but it's just sodium.
Yes, I don't
primarily just
I don't
sodium.
get the other. I get sugar.
But that's not part of the like you're not getting the potassium, calcium,
No,
magnesium.
I'm just getting the sodium there.
Yeah,
but that's
phosphate,
been working
okay.
for me.
Okay.
The thing that's been difficult is it's still pricey. Like
Yeah.
a box of 15 of those beta fuels for the high carb is still like $35.
Yeah.
I'm like, so, but I will mix in gels with that to kind of get the carb intake up.
Okay. So from 80, you're trying to supplement a little bit with some of
80
these
from
gels.
the bottle,
like,
and then another 20 to another 40
30.
with either
Yeah.
gels or
Gels.
chews.
okay.
I've tried LMNT.
Element.
Dang it! I even thought I was like, oh, I'm gonna say LMNT because that's
You know, it's
right.
funny.
No.
I used to say LMNT, and it is called element.
It's funny because we were
But
saying it last week,
yeah.
but then you told me, and just now in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm gonna say it correctly.
Yeah.
I was like, no,
I
wait.
looked it up after my Ironman because I was saying it incorrectly for a while. Yeah.
I have mixed in some element before. The stuff I really want to try, I've seen a lot of stuff advertised on my socials for it, is the Formula 369. So what I like about it is you can kind of determine. So one scoop is 30 grams of carbs. And
Okay.
then they recommend up to 3 scoops per bottle, depending on what you're doing. But
Got
it's
it.
also, but it's mostly carbs and sodium per scoop. So you're getting 600 grams of sodium, milligrams, and then 90 carbs and some sugar. But they also have an electrolyte booster that you can buy with it on those, like if you want the electrolyte
Booster pack.
the booster pack, which has
We're not giving you enough in our regular mix, but it's booster pack will get you there.
500 of sodium and 200 milligrams of potassium,
Yeah. So
and
you're
then
heavying
50
up on your sodium.
and
though.
then 50 of magnesium.
yeah.
So if you're like super sweaty, hot day, you could mix these two. And these seem reasonably more affordable. Like a 10-pound bag, a 5-pound bag is $45. And then the electrolyte boost is 50 servings for $30.
yeah.
So I'm
What
like,
you can get for the element. Yeah. And they're,
right. This sounds like a pretty good,
yeah.
like I want to try this next because I'm like, man, you know, I'm spending.
I think they give you an element packs. They give you 1,000 milligrams.
Yes.
Of sodium per pack, like for a little packet thing or whatever. So I've typically done it to where I just do half that for
Okay.
like per hour.
See, my thing is like, because we are not sponsored athletes, it's cost.
Yeah.
So like
I mean,
this nutrition is expensive. So
It
I'm
really
trying
is.
to get the best bang for my buck.
right.
So Skratch was great, but I wasn't getting a lot of servings.
Yeah.
Whereas SIS, I'm getting what feels like more servings, or at least it feels cheaper. But I want to try this Formula 369. I've just seen it. I mean, like I always say, I'm a sucker for marketing.
Yeah.
I see it everywhere on my Instagram now. But
If you're an advertiser, target Greg.
I will
He's
buy
easy.
your stuff. What do you use? Like what works for you?
Well, I started out with Science and Sport. That's
Yep.
the SIS. And honestly, I had been rocking that for a long time up until Blank's Nutrition. So I've really liked this one. So Blank's Sport Nutrition is one that I've been rocking this year specifically. And I think one of the things that's really intriguing about this to me is you're really getting, I think right now, you're getting the best bang for your buck.
Okay.
Now, I have not compared this side by side to every single other nutrition mix out there. I got recommended this through a buddy. But what the nice thing is just from a fueling perspective, this is something I didn't fully understand, honestly. And I think this is really interesting for a lot of people that are getting into racing, or maybe they're trying to make that transition or trying to figure out their nutrition. It's like the 3 things you really need when you're exercising at intensity or during a race: fluids, electrolytes, and carbs. So those 3 things, the piece that I've never truly spent much time on is the electrolyte part of it. I've always thought, yeah, you need electrolytes, it's a part of it, but to really kind of break it down is like electrolytes really are those minerals that carry that electric charge and help that muscle function and your hydration and like impulses. And so, when you've got these like the sodium, potassium, magnesium, those, some of these main things, it's like, this is not only helping your muscle function and your nerves, it's help regulating your fluids from that. But in terms of your carbs, it's like that's your main source of energy. And so, what I think is I've always confused is just like, I'm always thinking, because most of us have heard like, oh, well, you just need like whatever. You need like roughly 60 to 90 grams of carbs per hour. And then now we've seen all these pro athletes go, like some of them are going up to even like 200 grams of carbs per hour.
Say, what did Natalie say last week? That
Cam Worth did 200 grams in an Ironman. And so, you hear these stats where it's like, oh, it's just carb. And oftentimes it's heard like, you need to drink a bottle per hour during exercise. But I think what's often overlooked, and this is something I was learning with this, is just the idea of like, you really need all three to be a well-balanced, like you need your electrolytes, you need to be able to take the fluids, like you need to be drinking roughly a bottle per hour or somewhere in that range of like 20 to 30 ounces of, fluids per hour. And then the other thing is you need carbs, and you need that well-balanced, that mix. And so just for example, like the Blank's high carb nutrition mix is really, so this kind of gives you at least right now, it gives you the most bang for your bucks. $25, you get 10 servings per container. So in about 3 scoops,
so this is something I've kind of realized. So I need to ask this. Is it 10 servings, or because some of these things is like 1 scoop is 1 serving, but they recommend 2 to 3 scoops per bottle?
I'm getting roughly about 30-ish scoops of each pack. So so 10, like a serving would be like 3 or 4 scoops.
That's something to look at, because that was where I ran into with the super fuel or whatever for Skratch. Is like I was only getting like 8 total bottles, which is not a lot.
Yeah.
But keep going.
No, it's great. It's a good thing because we're really trying to figure out like what gives you the best bang for your buck.
Yes.
Most of us are not, pro athletes. And so we're trying to do this at minimum, trying to be the most, effective with the dollars and trying to stretch it from a nutrition standpoint. But so for example, for this nutrition, Blank Sport Nutrition, it's like, it's giving me in these scoops, I'm getting 100 grams of carbs, which is great. That's perfect. Like that's great within that sweet spot. And then I'm also getting, from a sodium, I'm getting 200 milligrams. And then I'm also getting 44 grams of sugars. And I'm getting magnesium, I'm getting about 20 milligrams, potassium, about 60 milligrams. So mostly I'm getting, apart from just maybe getting about 100, maybe 100 to 200 milligrams of sodium off of what maybe the ideal range is for like per hour, I'm getting pretty much all of that just in my nutrition mix, to where I'm not having to supplement that much. Now, what I want to do is start testing that with LMNT a little bit. So maybe throwing a little bit of LMNT into the bottle as well, just to make sure I've got that sodium component from it. But I think the thing that's interesting to just kind of think from a big picture perspective, because I've often I've even had friends that have asked me like, what do you use to fuel? Like, what's your fueling strategy for races? Whether that's like, for marathons in the past or the tri stuff, or just even now with bike stuff. It's like, because really it's the same for most people, but I think it's interesting. Like a simple guideline is like, really you're looking for about 300 to 700 milligrams of sodium.
Okay.
Potassium, you're looking for about 100 to 200 milligrams. Magnesium, 10 to 20 milligrams. Calcium, 20 to 50. And then your fluids, you're really looking from like that, anywhere from 20 to 30 ounces of fluids. But for racers like us, bicyclists, you're mostly getting that in that like your bottle per hour. It's pretty easy to kind of manage that. And then carbs, a lot of people know this, but 60, 120 grams carbs per hour. But so when you're looking at that nutrition label, start really actually looking at like, okay, am I getting these things? Am I getting my sodium? Am I getting my magnesium? Am I getting my carbs? And are these things adding up to where it's like, okay, am I shelling out a fortune for this one nutrition mix compared to something else that's much cheaper, but maybe I can supplement it with something else that's not as expensive?
I might try this because I was looking at the wrong one when you were talking.
The high carb mix.
Yeah. So I'm like, holy cow, 100 grams of carbs, a lot of sugar. Here's the thing, though.
But it doesn't feel too sweet. And I know this is part of it too. So what do you ever feel with your nutrition? Do you feel like it's ever too sweet for you?
No.
I don't either. I really don't. I haven't had that, even with the SIS. Like somebody else might drink my mix and be like, oh my gosh, that's really sweet. And I would be like, oh, it feels fine.
I get a sweet tooth when I work out though.
Yeah.
Like I don't like, some people are savory. I'm a sweet tooth. Here's the thing though. What's hard, I'm yet to find, and if someone uses it, please let us know in the comments. But I'm yet to find, because even looking at this high carb one, going off of the numbers that you were just reading of what you should take in an hour, this falls low on the potassium.
Yeah.
And so it's like there is no perfect.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
So it's finding what works for your body and what works for your gut.
Yeah.
So I do want to try this because it's like, okay, 2 bags is $50.
Yeah.
But
you're getting roughly about 60-ish scoops, maybe a little more.
But this is everything.
It's mostly everything.
Like you don't,
you're not missing much.
Well, see, like my thing is I'm buying separate stuff and mixing it.
Yeah.
Like I'm buying the tablet. Yeah, it's more work. Whereas like
this is pretty simple.
Now, if you have a quote lighter day where you're not doing as high intensity or riding as long, will you do less scoops?
Yeah, I'll just do the recovery mix. So they have like a recovery mix on here too that gives you like, it's just, it's just less of it. So
but you don't drink that. You don't drink that while you work out, do you?
I only drink it if I'm exercising beyond like an hour. So if it's like less than an hour, but if I'm doing high intensity stuff, if it gets closer to okay, I'm doing like sweet spot stuff for an hour 30. And it's like, if that sweet spot starts pretty early into that, I'll definitely take, I won't typically do the high carb mix unless I feel like this is going to be a really, really hard session.
Or really long.
Correct.
Like a 4-hour ride.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. But I mean, essentially, it goes back to even what Natalie was saying last week. Was like, if you're exercising beyond an hour, you need to really start supplementing.
Yeah.
So otherwise, you're putting yourself in a disadvantage. So yeah. But I mean, yeah, I think the only last thought I had on this too is just the idea of like, I've always been curious about the sugars in the nutrition, and it's just that idea of like, they really help with just absorbing faster, of the electrolytes in your water with your small intestine. I thought it's like, I just think that's really interesting because I'd always look and see like, oh, this is, X amount of grams of sugar. And I'm always like, that's interesting. Yeah. But I never really understood why. And it's just to help absorb faster of the electrolytes in the water. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Well, even you see these Grand Tour guys cross the line and they're given a little mini can of Coca-Cola.
Yes.
Because they just need that quick sugar burn, that quick.
Yeah. But I mean, it's true. And I think so much of it, and we've talked about this too, is just training your gut. Right. I mean, because you can't show up to race day and be like, oh, I've never tried this before, I'm going to try it today. It's like, that probably won't end well.
Yeah.
But it is tough.
Do not do this on a race day. You have to train yourself.
Yeah. But if you're doing these like 3 to 4 hour long rides, if you're leading into a race, like that's the perfect time to start testing it.
Yeah, that's why I've been doing the 4-hour rides and trying. Because like last year at Charahala, after 4 hours, my gut started to kind of like, I was like, I can't do the sugar anymore and I can't do the high carb. Yep. But that's when it's like, that's when you need it the most, when you're 4 hours in.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's, it's great. And we would love to hear from you guys. Like, what nutrition mix gives you the best bang for your buck? We would love to hear from everybody. Feel like has a different flavor and preference. So we'd love to know like, what is your go-to mix? And have you found that perfect mix out there that gives you this like, oh, you guys missed this completely? Yes. Let us know.
That's what I want to know.
We'd love to hear that.
What are you trying and why?
I'd love to start with our rapid fire.
Okay.
Giro d'Italia.
The Giro is on.
Have you been watching him?
The Mads Pedersen show so far.
That's right.
What is he, 3 stages?
I think it's 3 stages as of stage 5. Yeah. Okay. So when this is recorded, this will have been stage 5. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So today was stage 5. So, yeah, I've been watching it. We have Max. So, well, my father-in-law is a listener. He lets us use his Max account. Shout out. And so that's one that's on Max. So I can watch the Giro. Now the problem is it's always when I'm at work. So like I can't watch it. Yeah. But my plan period when I don't have any students is usually the last like 20 kilometers. Oh. So I can watch the last 30 minutes, which is kind of like better than
some
a race
of these initial stages. Yeah.
And so I'll do that. Sometimes if I miss out, I'll do the highlights. Yeah. But definitely been tuning in. It's been fun to like, I don't know. Mads Pedersen is just, he's been growing in my likeness, but I'm like, I like this guy.
Well, what's interesting is that he's now surpassed Wout van Aert for total stage wins in their career.
What's he at?
52.
What's Van Aert at?
49. Huh. I thought that was interesting because there's people that talking about like, oh, now he's maybe better than Wout Van Aert. And I'm like, I just was curious. I looked it up and I was like, how many stage wins does he have comparatively? And I was like, oh, technically he has more stage wins, but he's has them in all the Grand Tours.
Okay.
Which I don't believe Wout has. I could be wrong, but I don't think he has them all.
So for the last few years, anytime there's a classics race, if it's usually Van der Poel versus Wout Van Aert. And I don't feel like Wout Van Aert is at the level he's been at the last the last 2 years. He's not been what he's been, especially after his crash last year.
Yeah.
Like
it seems to be kind of the general consensus. Like he's just not
you
quite
watch
the same.
him in the sprints and he just doesn't have it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man, could Pedersen be that next kind of classics rival for Van der Poel? I mean, obviously, Tade, we throw him in the mix because he can do it all, but take him out of the picture. I'm like, ooh, Pedersen.
Yeah.
Like Pedersen, Ghana's kind of been becoming more of a classics guy than just the time trial. So
which is exciting because you want more variety and just the like. I mean, as much as we love Van der Poel too, it's like it's nice when you have at least some competition for him, given in any classics where it's like it's not a given for him to win everyone.
I saw this really interesting reel today, and it was Cavendish talking about cycling during his career, and he said when he first came into the Tour, everything was about being a good racer. And then once all the data and the power and the science came into the sport, then it became about who's the most powerful or strongest. And it was no longer about winning races. So then all the races as by default got really hard, really fast. And then only a couple guys were winning everything. And then now it's kind of come full circle to you have to have these really great power numbers, but also able to win races.
Yeah.
And so that's why when I watch guys like these guys, I'm like, oh, this is like, it's getting exciting in the sense of like, especially these classics races where it's not just
one dude.
It's like, oh, this guy, any given day now.
Yep.
Any of these guys could challenge him.
Yeah. Which makes it exciting. And I think obviously with the Giro, are you
Roglic, watching? How are you watching it?
Just highlights.
Okay.
I mean, having not paid for it, it's always highlights, and it's fine. I think it's also like a time commitment thing too. It's like I cannot watch every stage. I just like I do not have the time in the week or the days to do it. I'd love to if I didn't have everything else pulling for my attention, but it's just I don't have the time.
Don't they start at like 5 a.m. when you're already up?
Yeah, but you need to have the subscriptions to watch them.
You don't have Max?
No. Yeah.
We should get Max.
Yeah. Well, if you bought it for me for Christmas,
I want to get
then
Flow
maybe I'll get
Bikes
it.
to watch the other
Flow Bikes would
third
be cool. Yeah.
of the races that I can't watch.
Yeah. That's right. I don't know how you do it with a family, young kiddos, career. You watching them and being able to pull that off is impressive.
Well, what you have criticized me for is I don't sit down and watch a 5-hour race. I will break it up over the course of 5 days.
Yeah, that's
and
brutal.
then you're like,
oh my gosh,
hey, have you seen Roubaix? And I'm like, no, it's Wednesday. I'm still finishing it.
It's awful because Derek and I are excited to talk about the race, and you're like, I just started it. I can't. Don't spoilers.
But
I'm like,
I've watched
you can't
the
even
race. You've watched the highlights.
Yeah,
like it's not the same.
What extra benefit are you getting by watching the full race that I'm not getting in the highlights to be able to talk about?
I will tell you. I will tell you because I've noticed it this year.
Okay.
With the few races that we've done.
Yeah.
And you watch guys attack and bring it back in the races that we've done and how hard it is to get in a breakaway.
Right.
You see in the beginning, attack. And I'm like, holy cow, I can appreciate how hard they're working and how hard it is to actually get in a breakaway. When I say I can appreciate, I mean like on a very small scale. But like I recognize now, like it's not just, they climb the last 5 kilometers and win.
It's very difficult being in a breakaway. Yep. Okay. Well, we would love to hear from you guys. What do you think on our takes on nutrition and the choices? What do you think of our breakdowns? Do you think Greg's insane for trying to watch every stage of every single race over the course of a week? We'd love to hear the comments on that too. Please affirm me in this that he's insane for it. But I think this has been good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We will see you guys soon.
See ya.